and then we'll get started.
No problem. Hey, I'm making y'all blocks. I'm making some, and I'm about to powder coat them. So I'm making some 5-pound weights, some thin weights for y'all here. I'll roll my fancy.
Oh yeah.
Cart. Yeah. So what I'm doing, I have some really thick. What do you call it? Block here, and what I'm doing is I've got it cut that I'm making, and then I'm powder coating. I was gonna send some to Chris. And, let's see here.
Yeah, it's almost way better than the bricks for sure.
Yeah, I'm sanding that powder coating. I got some blue that matches y'all's blue. Let's see here.
Nice.
If I can see this. So it's they call it. Ta-da! Where is it? Ta-da! So yeah, they look then when they're done. They look. I don't know if it's in there.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
See if it seems.
Is it just Jerry right now? Oh, hey, Jerry, check it out. So also, you know how supposedly the M2 with the spring doesn't go? Can you see the top? Yes, you can.
Yeah, the hole right there.
Yeah,
there I got it. Okay, so normally, supposedly on the short chain M2, you're not able to go all the way to the extreme corners, right? And in the instructions, it says go in 14 inches, an inch up. Well, I went in 6 inches, inch down, and on the short chains, and now you can go all the way to the corners.
That's awesome.
So I told Chris about that last night. I was like, hey, I made it work. But we ordered long chains anyway because he wants us to switch to 12-foot.
Yeah, we have one more so we can build another nozzle with. I really want, so we have the other one there. I'm just saving up a little bit so we can build. I've got a sled. We've got the Arduino.
Well, we have that one is done. That one is done, and then the other one that's not painted yet is missed. It just needs the controller and motors.
Hey, we want to get with you.
You guys have a little farm.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna do farm. That's awesome.
How dare you not paint the other one?
Well, the other one was the first one we built, and that one was assembled, and then we scavenged parts off of that after these got built and painted. And, oh, it's Chris.
So,
and you see those powder coated weights that they made?
Does the other one get used for other stuff? Because I noticed in like your shop tour yesterday that it's in another room.
Yes. Yeah, I took over the whole complex. So yeah, we're trying to make room for them. So yeah, we're trying to get that figured out. That's been our.
I didn't know if you had like a different material that you cut with that one, and that's why it was over there, and those two were.
No, that was the first one. So, and that one I got because I was super excited. The other one I've been wanting one really bad. My wife asked me last year what I want for Father's Day. I was like, a Maslow, please. So that was my Father's Day gift last year. And then I stole the boat and bought a couple more. We bought the few kits, but we needed that one there. We're still missing parts on. I've got to buy some more parts so we can get it back up. But we're going to paint it anyways and make it blue and do all the stuff.
Right on.
We're going to have to make a big room. I need a vector of your logo. I've got a big vinyl cutter. I need a vector of your logo. I was going to put a big Maker Made logo up on the wall up there.
Yeah, I can send you the AI, or we've got a vinyl cutter. I can send you vinyl too if you like.
Oh, we've got a big vinyl cutter. So I've been trying to train our interns, so we'll cut it. If you send me an AI, that'd be awesome.
Did you have powder coat on your nose?
No, that's about the powder coat in its blocks. I'm making you the blocks for your sled.
Oh, are we
powder coating weights? They're awesome.
Yeah. We're supposed to be sending Chris a sled with weights.
Yeah. What do you call it? Acrylic sled.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool.
With lights.
Clear. And I was gonna use the laser and put the logos and stuff in it.
Sweet. Yeah, I'll get that logo over to you. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I see we have Alfredo on. Just like last week, this is just an open forum, just drop by session. If you have any questions, issues, or you just want to kind of hang out for a little while, feel free. I will have this open every Thursday, but I will start if anyone has any questions about their machine, any kind of troubleshooting stuff, feel free to throw it out. I do want to say I will not be getting into any of the beta stuff in this meeting, only because I want to kind of keep this pure to production environment stuff. I will be setting up a separate meeting specifically around anyone that wants to join the beta and take part in testing new software and firmware. So just kind of keep an eye out for that. I'll probably schedule something for early next week, but I plan to share the invite tomorrow in the owners group, so everybody has enough time to kind of plan around that.
Well, with that being said, I guess I'm kind of new. This is the first time I've ever been in this meeting. I do have a bit of troubleshooting, if that is the whole point of kind of why we're meeting. I'm having some issues with my machine, and I was wondering if I could get a little bit of help, a little bit of guidance on what I can do to fix it, because it's a little aggravating.
Absolutely, 100%. Fire away.
So I bought a jumpstart kit, set it up, worked great. I have a Windows Surface that's running. It just did all those Windows just did a bunch of updates over the past couple of weeks, and I have them all installed. So I was running it. I use easel to do my designing, but then I just export the G code and have ground control run the actual G code on the machine. But all of a sudden I was cutting out some simple shapes just to kind of get my bearings and kind of learn my equipment. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, the slide just went straight down. Like I was cutting a square. I was trying to make a poster board, just like a poster frame, like a basic thing. And the sled just went straight down and kept going, like beyond the realm of the actual machine, just the chains just going. So I had to just kill power to the thing. And now whenever I plug it in, the motors are actually going in the opposite direction, just trying to retract and just trying to go in the up direction. I've uninstalled and reinstalled ground control, Arduino. I've rolled back the updates. I've tried everything software related. And every time, the moment I connect it, the moment that I connect the Arduino board to the laptop, it keeps doing the same thing. And I don't know why.
It goes into runaway mode?
Yeah. But now, okay, at least only one of the motors is doing runaway mode now, not both, but it's still like, even if ground control isn't open on my laptop, if I just connect it to that USB-C, it just starts going.
It just takes off. So yeah. I would say the first couple things that I would check is, just because you know, obviously you had that panic moment where things just kind of took off and started doing their own things. Uh-huh. You know, I apologize if you've tried any of these things. I'm just kind of going.
Oh no, I'm open to any suggestions, because like I said, when the machine kept going down, you know, I was like, oh, you know, I don't want it to damage anything else. So that's, yeah, I hit the spike strip. I had it on, killed power to everything.
So our motors they're not a traditional CNC motor, which is a stepper, which will have like a stepper driver and everything. We use a worm gear motor on the X and the Y, and we have a rotary encoder on the back of that motor. A lot of times where we see motors that go into like a runaway mode are where either one of those wires is kind of loose, or that connector isn't fully seated, or it could get some sawdust or something in there. And usually it's a issue where the board is not able to communicate with the encoder on that motor, and it doesn't actually know how many times the motor is spinning. And then so if the board doesn't know that the motor is spinning, or say it says, hey, turn 25 times clockwise, if if it's not getting a clear communication from the encoder, it doesn't have a accurate recollection of when it has completed that action, and then it'll just keep feeding it power, waiting for a response from the encoder. So I would try that. And the other thing that I would say, just because we're in kind of troubleshooting mode right now, we want to solve the symptom that you're having with that motor before we get you back into a cutting instance, is I would flip-flop your cables. So unplug your left motor and then plug that cable into your right motor and see if you're still having a runaway issue. If you still see that runaway issue, then that would say to me that there's more than likely a physical problem with the encoder that is on that motor. And then we would need to look into a warranty replacement for that motor. But if switching them resolves the problem, you don't see runaway on that motor, then I would say, okay, now let's go back and reseat everything and see if it happens again, and then see if your left motor turns into a runaway. And if it happens in that instance, then it may be something relative to the board or the firmware that's on it. I will say also with ground control, there's a quirk where, not even a quirk, it's unfortunate. The Arduino boards that we use, the Megas for the 1.2, they don't have enough memory to actually store the machine calibration on the Arduino itself. So the calibration is actually put back on the board after your cut is complete. So anytime you have an issue with a cut, like if you have a runaway sled or you have some kind of issue during the cut that causes you to stop or pull power, a lot of times you have to go back and perform
recalibrate it
again. And I know that's frustrating. That was one of the biggest things that we wanted to solve with the M2, with going to the do board, where all of that information can actually be saved on the board, so that if you have an issue, you don't have to recalibrate over and over and over again.
Will the do board still use ground control?
No, so the do board uses our application that Maker Made has worked on. That's called Makerverse.
Okay.
Now, obviously, this is completely outside of your problem, but we do have a open beta for a new version of Makerverse that actually is compatible with the 1.2 board that is running your Jumpstart kit, and then that would be a ground control replacement for you, as far as controlling the machine and uploading G-code and all that stuff. So we like to think that it's better than ground control. Obviously, I would push that back on other members of the community on if they feel like it's better, just because they are the ones using it more than us. But it is kind of our newer application that we are going to be rolling out. It's already available for M2 users, but the new beta version actually brings in those legacy Maslow's as well. So regardless of what control board you have, you would have the ability to use Makerverse. So if you have any interest in joining the beta, definitely let me know, and we can get you in there for some testing.
Yeah. No, I'm not nearly as big of a user. Like I said, I got the Jumpstart. I do cabinetry on the side as a side gig. I'm actually in my classroom on my off period right now. My main gig is a teacher. But once I get some money off of my M1, then I was going to look at upgrading to the M2. And so that's just kind of planning ahead. But first, let's get my M1 working again. So check the connectors. You're wanting me to flop the cables just to troubleshoot to see if it's a board issue or if it's a motor issue, or could potentially be. Was there anything else I can try? Because I'm going to be trying that this evening when school lets out.
Absolutely. Are you on Facebook?
No, I'm sorry. I learned long ago as a teacher to not do too much social media because the kids.
Fair enough. No, that makes sense. What I can do is, if you like, I can send you my email address. I know you're working on this in the evening. I think it's pretty dope that you're a teacher and doing this kind of stuff. So if you want, we can just coordinate a Zoom session and I can just troubleshoot it live with you whenever you have an opportunity, because I want to make sure that you get your machine going, because I know we can get it working.
Yeah. I know we can too.
And so I just want to do anything I can to eliminate the frustration, because this is the point where this is like that turning point where you can either say like, man, we got over that hump, this is really cool, or you're like, I'm going to burn this in the backyard. And I want to, you know what I mean? I just want to make sure we go in the right direction.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, let's do that.
We've only burned a few of them.
Okay.
It doesn't take much chemistry.
Drew, I am kind of curious to see how you did, what your chain management looks like on your setup, because I kind of rigged up my own. Oh, yeah. Because I kind of rigged up my own that runs across the top of the machine using the bungee and some quick links.
You're using the M1 methodology. This is the M2 methodology, but a lot of people use it on the M1 too. But this is actually something I'm going to go over here in a minute. Other Drew and I, Maker Drew and I were talking about this before everybody hopped on. I wanted to tell Chris. More than happy. Do you want me to jump in right now, or are you still finishing your thing, Alfredo?
Yeah, no, I just, if I could get that email address, that way if we need to set up a kind of a live troubleshoot to get the machine working, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm sending it to you in chat right now.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, that was my partner Drew. I'm Dale, by the way.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I just saw the name.
No worries. So everyone, specifically Chris, I know you want us to switch to the 12-foot to test out what we're doing, and we have those chains coming. But I may have done something cool for you last night. So I know that the short chains on the M2 with this setup aren't really intended or don't really go to the extreme corners. I made it work. So instead of following the instructions where you do the 14-inch and 1 inch up, 14 in, 1 inch up, the geometry wasn't working, and as you saw, like on all the posts on Facebook and on the group, that everyone was yanking their nails out because the chain would go to the end, and then the sprocket, the idler sprocket would go beyond the screw and then pull. So I just sat there, I did a few tests, mapped it out, remapped it out, and I went 6 inches in, 1 inch down, and that puts you inside the V no matter whether you're at the top or the bottom, and it puts it so that the idler, good job, Drew, so that the idler is about 1 inch or ½ an inch inside the nail when you go to extreme bottom. So now with short chains, was that the regular chains, I can take the sled all the way to the corner, because if you see right here, the nail is up closer to the motor. When you go to the corner, the idler is right here, like right next to it. And to what Alfredo was asking, this is just a lot of the M2 users. It's in the actual M2 build manual, are using these big garage springs going from idler to idler instead of using the bungees, because the bungees are great. It worked for a while, but I'm sure as you saw, it either lacks tension, or it sometimes gets, if you want to, it gets too much tension, or you end up like wrapping things.
Yeah, well, rather than having them kind of meet in the middle the way the instruction is, I had them one go down and one go up, and kind of extended them beyond that using the pulleys. And then rather than the little S hook, I got some quick links to connect the sprocket with the bungee, and it seemed to work great for now. But my worry is that eventually, hot, cold, my machine's in a garage, that those bungees are just going to start deteriorating.
They're going to rot and deteriorate. Yeah, exactly. And what a lot of people actually before the spring were doing is they were doing like a double pulley system here, like a pulley up, pulley back, and putting weights back here and actually just letting weights.
I've seen some of those builds. I just haven't had the time to try to recreate one.
Honestly, so far, using the 2 quick links and the garage spring, and I forget the length. Do you remember the length? It's in the manual.
Yeah, well, and then I think you can get the parts, right? You can just buy the springs off of the parts store.
You can buy it from the parts store. So it's ready to go, and it will reach the full, like the full. Actually, I haven't tried it on the 12-foot yet, obviously, but it should just go the whole thing.
Yeah.
No adjustment needed. What I do
on the 12-foot one, we can still use that same spring, because the 12-foot top beam uses 15-foot chains instead of 11 feet. And those springs, Alfredo, if you like, those are pretty available. I want to say it was like a Home Depot find.
Yeah, I'm not, the bungees are not the big concern. Like I said, I'm fairly new. I got my machine up and running maybe a month and a half ago. So I still have some time on those bungees until I start seeing some deterioration on them. But at the same time, I kind of recognized them when I was looking at the parts, especially when I saw the upgrade, because I'm keeping my eyeball on that upgrade kit to upgrade my, just because the upgrade kit makes sense to me. Yeah, I was like, hey, I bet you they have that at Home Depot.
Well, our M1's in the other room, and it's had the bungees on there for almost 2 years. So and it's in an unair conditioned shop. We're out in the open right here, so it's been fine so far. Granted, we did take it apart, and we're going to switch over to this way now that we've done this. The other thing that I would like to maybe suggest and change next is the nail point where the end of the chain goes. I might drill a hole through and get a small long bolt and put that through there because of the nail pulling out. Now, granted, if you have a failure and you have a runaway like you did, and it goes to the end, instead of yanking the nail out and saving the chain, it's probably going to break the chain or rip the motor off of its screws. But
yeah, it'll actually tear the frame apart.
Yeah.
I think our gear reduction is like 200 to 1 on the motors, and
they're ridiculously
strong. And the chains are rated to 880 pounds each.
Yeah, it's scary.
It even says it in the manuals, like the motors are ridiculously strong. And I saw some of that when I was doing the calibration, because I got, kind of the chain kind of hung up when I was still learning the machine and learning what I needed to do. And I was like, oh wow.
Interesting. So if you Google us, you'll see we designed one of the emergency ventilators for COVID, and it was all this. And we actually part of the reason Dale nearly killed me because I needed really strong motors to handle bad lungs, because it takes a lot of pressure. I actually used the Maslow motors to run the ventilator. So if you look in the news stories, you actually see the Maslow motors. It's a bunch of Maslow parts on the ventilator.
And they're stripping out the metal gears that we were building. They were rounding out. They were actually ripping the hole out of the slotted gear that we made for these things. I think we used a 16 gauge, we used a 14 gauge, and then I forget, we used something thick. I forgot what gauge the aluminum was, but it was much, much thicker, and it ripped it right. It just was like, nah, I don't care. There's metal there, whatever. It just ripped right through it.
Did that break your chain, Mike? Oh man, I see you.
Hey! Dang.
Yeah,
that's stretched too. Hold it up to the front. Hold it up.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Hey, do y'all know which RPM those worm gear motors are on the Maslows?
I don't. No. Chris might.
I don't have it
They're
memorized.
super heavy duty.
I have the text sheet. I can send you an email.
Yeah, if you guys are you guys hearing me okay? This is Mike.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, right on. This was my first run when I got it up and running, and I just got on as I'm hearing Alfredo talk about runaway, and I also, Alfredo, I am morally opposed to Facebook, but and killed everything about Facebook in my life a year or two ago, but just for Maker Made, I set up a burner account that is just used for nothing else than participation on the Maker Made Facebook thing. But so anyway, yeah, when I first got it up and running, I overlooked, thought I was, I'm an engineer. I'm way smarter than this manual. There's a lot of stuff in the manual that just feels like it's really amateurish. So I was just like, all right, I can do this. But when what I should not have overlooked was home. You got to give it something that it knows as home on the M2 with the Makerverse anyway. I don't know the Maslow, but if you haven't done that, then I could not find any way to stop the motors. So I just kept starting, and I mean, plugging it in, turning it on, thinking that I was going to be able to stop it, and I couldn't. And I'd shut it off and regroup. I'm like, all right, what am I going to do next? And I plug it back in, let it run for a couple seconds. Damn it. Well, I was standing on the backside of my machine, so I wasn't seeing how bad the spring was getting.
Are you talking ground control or Makerverse?
Makerverse.
Sleep wasn't stopping it, or reset?
I didn't think to try reset. I mean, this probably sounds idiotic, but it took me probably a week before I finally tried pressing that damn reset button. I was afraid reset sounded like, you know, reset all my calibration parameters, reset a bunch of stuff that I'm going to regret. I could find no explanation anywhere of what reset did. So
it should just reset connection.
Never looked at it.
As far as I understand from the code, it should just reset connection. It shouldn't Chris should know better, but it should just do a disconnect, reconnect.
Right on. Yeah. The tooltip that comes up when you hover over it says pretty much what you just said, you know, reset the connection. So, you know, I felt like a moron, you know, when I eventually realized, you know what, you know, there's got to be another way to bail out when you get this thing going somewhere you don't want it to.
Well, I know we're not talking about beta right now, but I will talk. I'll just put this out there, like for the next time, Chris, real quick, guys. To Mike's point, we got Drew installed this little emergency stop here. We wanted to talk about putting a trigger in there to either trigger sleep or reset or something, so that you're not just shutting off the motor, you're not just shutting off the router, that things actually will safely shut off, and you don't, to again Mike's point, lose your calibrations and lose your home. So if we could, when we have that beta talk, if we could discuss that, like put that on the line, action items for that, because that would be super helpful for a lot of people.
The big thing is just with running G-code streaming, is that once a G-code command has been issued,
you can't stop.
You can't get it back. So part of it is we may need to look into doing almost like a post processor of our own that makes the G code more stoppable.
Or when you switch to the Arduino one where you're doing it all on board, right? That's not streaming.
Yeah, so like the M2 itself, you can yank the power and not affect your calibration. The only thing that you have to do is just manually recenter your sled by.
Sweet. So that's perfect. So these will work. Because all these are, I ended up going with this power one. So it's just like on a table saw, you know. And it's just going to the plug. So I kill the plug to then the M2, and that will stop it.
Yep. So
Beautiful.
if you kill power, the only thing that you'll have to do is just recenter the sled. And then so you'll see on, I need to do a better, I need to put it on the web, put the files on the website. But I did a 3D file for a centering jig that goes inside the hole of the sled. And then it has a hole in the middle of it that uses a brick strap bolt. And then so you can actually, you can take your wasteboard, measure the dead center, drill a 1/4 inch hole in the center, and then put the centering jig in there, run the brick strap hole, and then the wing nut, and then just set your chains based off of that, and then you're homed.
Hey, when you said earlier that after you've shut it down or under these circumstances, whatever, the only thing you would need to do is like manually bring it back to home. Are you talking about in Makerverse pressing the home button, or are you talking about like jogging it to home?
It would actually be manually readjusting the chains on the sprocket itself. So like when in the M2 manual, where it says to align your sled in the exact center of your wasteboard, and then make a physical adjustment to the chains, and then when you make the connection, you go in and you set home. All 00 is in our firmware. It is calculated to be the dead center of your wasteboard. So whenever we go in and you set what your wasteboard dimensions are, the firmware is automatically going to calculate the midpoint of that area, and then it assumes that that is where your 0, 0 is. So whenever you are manually setting your sled to the center of your wasteboard and saying set home or declare, we need to change it to declare home, but we're working on some of the verbiage. And then, so whenever you say set home, you're just telling the machine, hey, the sled is where you expect it to be for 0.00. And then anytime that you deviate from that, you can just manually move it back to that 0, 0 point and then say set home again. And then it's good. Now, if you are off center and you want to do a manual jog, you can also do a manual jog and then say set home, and then that's resetting that 0, 0 point. But sometimes in the instance of a runaway, if the sled leaves the surface of the wasteboard, you're not in a position where it's easy to jog back to the center. So you can actually do a manual reset where you just unhook the chains, set your sled back to that midpoint, and then reconnect and kind of manually adjust that tension by pulling on the spring. And then you can say set home, and then you've kind of reset everything. That was one of the biggest things that we wanted to do on the M2, because on the original Maslow's and the Jumpstart kits and all the different boards, the firmware always needed to be trained how long the chain was, when in reality, we can make a educated measurement on how much chain you need, because the chain isn't really the limiting factor, because as long as you're accounting for chain slack, you can have much more chain than you actually need to accommodate the wasteboard. So that's where we pivoted to where we were saying, okay, well, we're not going to base this off of length of chain, because we want users to use whatever length of chain they want. So we're going to base this off of the midpoint of the wasteboard as 0, 0. And then with proper chain management, your wasteboard can now be whatever size that you want, as long as you have the chains to accommodate it and you improperly put the measurements into the software.
That was also probably the longest part of the calibration. You had to sit there and wait for the motor to roll it through, and then you had to drag it across. And it would take, on a slow day, on a first timer, you're looking at, an hour, 2 hours for calibration.
Yeah, that was our goal. That was definitely the goal, was to maximize or minimize the amount of time that it takes to calibrate. And when we went into kind of designing the M2, it was, okay, how do we make it to where building the frame should really be the biggest time investment on this machine. And so we just kind of took that approach from calibration. But we are looking into methods to kind of like a freeze or like a pause. But as far as sending pause as a G-code command, G-code is run, synchronously. So if you send it a G-code command that says, hey, go on a 5-mile hike, and then you send it a pause command, it's going to wait until it finishes the previous command before that pause is ever run. So that's where, like power interrupt and stuff like that is going to be the safest method of giving you a freeze in place action.
Hey, Adrian. So Adrian, you got a question there. I see in the chat, you've got a setup question. Do you want to unmute and ask your question? Are you there, Adrian?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, let me go. I'm actually working on my full-time job right now, so give me 1 second. I'm going to go to my garage real quick.
Hey, while Adrian's moving, I just one suggestion as a guy who's come to the M2 new that has no knowledge or experience with Maslow that came before it. It's always confusing to me to understand when people that are in this community are talking about things that are in common between the two versus what's not in common versus etc. Number one. And number two, the manual as it exists today feels like it's like more like a quick start. Here's like, hey, here's some suggestions on how to get up and running, and follow this if you're, going to get up and running as the world's biggest dummy. And it would be really cool if there's like another thing that's more like, okay, here's what you really need to know that goes on behind the scenes. Here's what all the measurements are that are really important measurements, and why we told you in the quick start to do things the way you did them. And, like why things go wonky on your x-axis and how you can fix that, and y-axis and how you can, and what really happens that adjusts your non-linearity or whatever in your two axes, and how you can adjust those stuff like that. It's just all mysterious, and you're poking around the entire internet to find various ideas of what people have inferred.
If I may, that is a common trend in the open source, and it's just not Maslow. It is anything open source, anything community driven. That is a common trend. I've been involved in so many different communities outside of this. Like I was one of the maintainers for the OpenStack community, right? So this is just something that you see happen where there's there's a lot of assumptions that people are on the same level that you are, or that you know the same history or the same terminologies, and there's a lot of stuff. And I will say that these guys their manual is really good for what it is. And I haven't seen a lot missing. Maybe it's because I'm a little more tuned in, like you said, but I have seen times where there are bits and pieces where it seems like there was an assumptive step that just wasn't quite there, but I figured it out. And I think we talked about this last time, like having a kind of a repository of,
access to maybe a GitHub repository for the manual where everybody's contributing these of cross-pollination of, well, if you do it this way, it's this one. If you do this prescription, it's this one. But there are so many different configurations and so many different ways to do it and so many different pieces of equipment. Like if you see right here, we have 2 different routers on ours. And we're getting ready to build one with a spindle, not a water-cooled spindle, not a router. Even that changed the brackets.
There's so many things, and it's so I have a background in education, and I used to be a teacher and 3D printing. So it's been really new to me to make a lot of this, and I've taken the lead on like building the manual and building the guides and stuff, and taking all the input and all the knowledge that's been built from the community and from Maker Made to kind of get it all together. So I've been taking notes like crazy, and I would love to know, like, if you guys, my email is drew@makermade.com. If you send me like the tips and tricks, because I want to make, like, I've got all kinds of things that I want to make, like, because that guide is very basic and it's intended to be for the extreme beginner, never used CNC before or anything. So I want to make it really good for that. But I'd love to make an advanced one for people that are coming from Maslow. And I'd also love to make one that's just got advanced terminology in it in general if you're used to CNC. So like you mentioned, Mike, like you have that background, I would love to have that information too. So we're actually building a repository like that with our fresh desk, which is what we use with our support. So we're actually building out like an FAQ section so we can have that and all the things that come from the community. So this is also kind of a discussion about the Facebook group too, because it's very hard to find information in the Facebook forum. It's like, I have a hard time finding info
because
there.
Facebook search sucks.
It sucks. So we've been talking about too of maybe doing another forum in the future. I don't know if that's something that you guys would be open to that's not on Facebook, where we could have things and search and find information, where you could say, hey, like, I have a runaway motor problem, and you could type that in and it would be like, boop, here's 10 people that have had that exact problem, and here's the message threads. So you could find it like right there. And the Maslow group is awesome for that, but it's all Maslow specific. So there's not M2 stuff in there really. And there's so much awesome info in that Maslow group, but that's absolutely something that we want to do. So I would love to hear Drew and Dale, your input, and Mike, yours too. If you guys send me an email, and because I'm not on Facebook a whole lot either, except when I'm doing the live stream. So if you want to send me just a message and stuff about the things that suggestions that you have and things like that, I would absolutely love to incorporate them and work them into the manual, because I want to make it as easy and as seamless as possible for somebody who is brand new to anything that's CNC, or somebody who's had tons of experience and everything in between. So like, we want to make it as easy as possible to get people started making cool creative projects. Like, that's the goal, is to like make awesome stuff. So like, absolutely. Yeah. We absolutely hear you.
That was Dale, especially as creating us forums and all that stuff. So, but yeah, one thing we were thinking about too on that line is we've had people that are like, hey, I want a Maslow, but they don't want to set it up and all that. So we've actually been thinking about starting a service where, like, for $300, if they buy a Maslow, we'll come out, we'll set it up for them, we'll get them going or something. We were actually thinking about just starting an on-site service to help them set it up, so that way they get going.
Payton just unmuted because we talked to Payton about that the other day.
Yeah, so I think I definitely want to get with y'all on that, Drew and Chris, and see, like, hey, if Payton, like, a part of the service is like, hey, because there's other people throughout the country that could do that too in other cities. Like, hey, here's a local person that'll come and set it up for you.
We have the marketplace on our website.
I saw that now. I got signed up.
Like, on the website on that marketplace, you could put a service that says, I will help you come and set it up. And then they could click on it and buy it. And then you set up to do that. So absolutely, yeah. That's what we want, that marketplace to be, a place where y'all's skills are shining, both in for assistance, for tech support, or for helping people build things, or for awesome projects that everybody's made. So
if you do like a tagging system where it's like they can go subcategories and they say setup or whatever, and they write that down.
Hey, let's move to Adrian real quick, because he's got.
Yes, I'm sorry, Adrian. We got sidetracked.
No problem. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I'm a noob, I guess you would say. I'm almost there. My question was, so these two bottom rails, when I received my sled, were already attached to this. So I had to figure out, there was 2 screws, and my question was, were those the only 2 screws from, I think one went in this direction and one went up?
So they go in the
side. Guide made no mention of it. It actually made mention that it was already complete.
Yeah, so Adrian, I actually ran into the same issue. I actually just finished my build as well, and then the Z-axis assembly instructions missed the bottom sled part, like the attachment onto the sled. So I actually reattached, like, because we bought an original bundle and then with the upgrade, and so I had double the pieces. And I had no way of figuring out how to kind of screw that in. All I had was Drew's notes on the assembly instructions that said, when you twist it, it tightens. So you do, like, I think from what I can see from now, you actually do have it set up properly, where I'm assuming you have the 3 on the bottom that are the 3 on the bottom that are screwed in. And then I think this is what Drew was about to talk about, was that you do have the screw that you have to tighten from the inside on the bottom, and then you have to tighten it from the side. But it looks like you have it right.
And it has to be in a certain order, because if you do one before the other, you can't access, I think, the side screw if you put the longer one first.
So that was part of the instructions was missing. So we made a change in our shipping to make the box smaller, and that was the change that we made. And I knew that was coming, and it outpaced the guide. So, like, I have the guide ready, and I'm just waiting on the final renderings for it, but I have all the steps in the new version of the guide. I just don't have the final, like, renderings for it yet. So that's why it hasn't released, but I have it. And that was, like, really recent, and you guys just got yours. So that's totally the shipping outpaced the guide. And I'm going to make a new, like, build video too. But in the interim, what you can do is you could take those rails off and then put it together and then put it back on the sled. But it's gonna talk you through, like, how when the rails come on the sled, then how to attach the Z-axis assembly to it. in those steps of the guide. So,
and I ended up, Adrian, I don't know what you had to do, but I had to watch like 5 different videos where I had to like pause it and see what the guy had done underneath to see like where that screw was attached. So like, again, there's a lot of good videos out there, but they don't really match the current build. So I don't know if like a community member that was like interested in updating the videos, but doing a new video for the new packaging would be ideal, especially when the bag numbers don't match. They're like letters to numbers, and then there's different bags so you're looking for the part in each bag. So you're going through all your bags, trying to find the part that goes for each. So it's again, and then the Z-axis assembly, there's like 4 extra screws in my bag that I'm like, I don't know if I was supposed to use or not.
So there are spare screws. So yeah, I'll just let you know there are spare screws. But that was a classic case of I was preparing the guide, but I didn't know the transition for the new ones was coming, and the new shipment outpaced the guide. So that's something that we're gonna get better at, and this was kind of like the big revision to the first run of M2s for everybody that first got them. So that was the big change. So yeah,
fast is always good though.
And yeah, I apologize for the trouble and stuff that y'all might have to go through, that you did go through, and the frustration, because I know that can be really frustrating. And
I figured it out. I just wanted confirmation, basically.
Yeah, that was our
and then the other thing, and it's probably related to the issue. I received, and I don't know if you can see what happened to me.
Yeah, I was about to ask the same thing. I had the same piece for the tension of the chain on the top frame.
So those you don't have to use those. Those are little spacers. So I actually have one, since my frame's small, can't really see it super well. So, why the camera's not lined up? Never mind. So there we go. So you can put it as a spacer like this, like that, and it can hold the chain. So we got those in there. This is kind of an old thing for the people that might have a Maslow. So with that transition, and I don't have experience with the Maslow really. So this is something that Chris definitely knows a lot more about. But we want to have those spacers in there for different type of frame designs that someone would be using. So those spacers are in there if someone needed them.
And I only have, sorry, I only have one more question.
What they are. Yeah, what's your question?
Is this, and it's probably going to be hard. So I have it basically right in the middle of my, is that slack normal? This amount of slack from where I'm at right now?
As long as it's not getting caught on anything. Yeah.
Okay.
Where's your
sled right now? Because it's going to change like as your sled moves around, then the slack.
Almost right in the middle.
Is that what length is your board?
It's a 4x8, and this is a 10-foot. A 10-foot.
That looks like a lot of slack compared. I have the 10-foot on the new model, and that looks like a lot of slack compared to ours.
Yeah,
I'd say that's excessive.
When I initially put it on, this spring felt like maybe it wasn't. I mean, it stretched obviously, but I felt like it gave out too much slack. Is this something that I could go to, let's say, Home Depot or Lowe's and quickly replace?
Let me see your
yeah. Where are the nails on the sides?
The end nails.
Yeah. So
Adrian, I was going to. Adrian, when I did my setup, I noticed that the instructions for doing the nails, so you do your 31 inches from your nail to your center, and that actually changed my tension. That wasn't clear to me when I read the manual, and it was an extra measurement from the nail and not from the side of the board.
Okay.
So,
but to my question, could I, like, let's say that this spring for some reason has given away less of the tension it should. Is this something that I could go and locally source?
Home Depot. You missed the beginning of we talked about this at the beginning too. And actually, honestly, the suggestion I just made at the beginning of this was I would not go 14 inches in, 1 inch up. I would go 6 inches in, 1 inch down, like I have here. And then that will allow you to go to the corners, and it will take up that slack for you, and it will give you a little bit of extra chain.
Yeah, I think if you pull your nails to the side, that'll might take care of your
Here, let me see if I can.
So that nail that you put right in the middle, though, that could cause some issues too, because the spring could get caught on that nail as it moves around. So the one that you put it on right in the middle, because as the spring tension like goes out.
Oh yeah, no, this one right here, yeah. Yeah, I figured that. I was gonna remove it. I probably will go with something hanging down here for my parking. But you said 6 inches.
Yeah, if you look right here, I got it 6 inches in and 1 inch down, and that
1
actually
inch or 2?
One
yeah,
down.
I'll test that too, and I'll let you know.
And I tested that so that it does not crisscross. So if I go all the way to the complete opposite bottom corner, it's not going to pass. It's going to be inside, and your idler, when you go to the corner, your idler will stop right here about 1 inch from the inside of the nail.
All right, thank you so much for that tip.
I would just in case, don't just go to the edge. Like take it, 10 millimeters at a time or whatever before you get to that point, just to be safe.
Yeah, I literally last night put everything finally together, and those were the questions I wanted to have answered before I got started. I haven't even finished. I think I need to put these facing down. I just did this momentarily.
Yeah. No, that won't hurt anything. Yeah, because they're just on the top.
I think the only one I need to double check is the one that goes to the Z-axis. I didn't want to have up there because I think it may be, I probably will do something like this so that there isn't too much strain on the connection. But these other ones, the other ones I'm going to leave like that. It doesn't interfere with my garage door opening either. But those were the only 2 questions I had, were the 2 rails attached already. And then the slack on here. I literally just received my kit, I think last weekend. So hopefully by this, I've been doing it slowly every night, a little more and more. I'm hoping this weekend I can go into full operation, but I appreciate your time, everybody. I got to go. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, and join next week if you have any problems with it or anything like that. We'll help you out.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You bet. See ya.
Do we know what the maximum extension on this spring is before it reaches whatever that physics problem is where the metal is damaged?
Or it's not a spring
it's wherever yours went and damaged itself. That's the maximum extension. So you measure that and let us know.
It's been
unfortunately, the damage was done, I think, pretty far before I caught it. But I mean, this is what I got from Home Depot. Fortunately, somebody at Maker Made, sorry I forgot his name, but responded to my email and sent me a replacement chain, which was really cool. I mean, spring. In the meantime, rather than waiting for it, I went to Home Depot myself and bought 2 of these, and they're incredibly cheap, like $5. And when the spring showed up from Maker Made, I realized, oh my God, these are virtually identical. I had no idea because by the time I noticed what the original spring I had ever looked like, I couldn't imagine that it was actually that short.
The chain is based on the original version of this was using that exact chain that spring from Home Depot. We built it off that. The quality of this one we have tested both against each other, is a bit better. So if you do find yourself in an instance where you got a stretched chain, Home Depot will work in a pinch, but for long term, definitely want to stick with the one we send and get a warranty part back to you.
Hey Patrick, didn't Chris say that spring will also work with the 12-footer? So I mean, it will. Yep. We know it'll spin.
100%.
Yeah, I can tell just looking at these that the Home Depot springs are. You're right on. They're not the same. Not
quite. But yeah, again, if you want to upgrade to the 12-foot, you only need the longer chains, and then you're good to go. Everything else should work just as is.
Yep. And just kind of, I don't know if it's interesting to anybody or not, but just because I didn't realize that the Home Depot springs were the correct length, I assumed they were far too short. So what I ended up doing is something completely different. I was like, well, why do we even have both motors connected to one spring? So I used separate springs for each one, and gave them a different base point to go from. But to me, the whole thing just doesn't seem right, that springs are the way to do this. It seems like, why are you changing the tension so much as you move around? It seems like all you're really trying to do is have somewhere for the slack for the chain to be collected so that things don't get messed up, right?
Personally, I think the counterweight method is the method. Like I've seen so many people make these really clever, really cool. There's one guy that even made one that's like a double counterweight that kind of travels this way and whatever. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I mean, that is how. If I go roll you behind our mill in there. I mean, that's what the mill uses. It uses a chain-driven, giant 300-pound, 400-pound counterweight.
2 ton.
No, not
That big one?
Yeah. 2 ton?
Yeah, it's 4,000.
Oh, yeah. So it's a giant weight hanging off the back. It's a counterweight. That's what the big industrial mills use. So.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with the counterweight system. I think it's a constant tension, right? Which is obviously, once you get that honed in on what exactly that pressure should be, that's a great system to use for a lot of people. The challenge that we have with it when it comes to producing, right, is the same that we're running into with the bricks, which is, how do you put enough weight in the box so that it meets the requirements of the kit without shipping somebody 20 pounds of weight that's going to cost them $100 a ship, right? So that is the catch-22 we deal with. So we're always open to these ideas, but that's the
It's right. You're dead right. So one of my early mentors was the founder of iRobot or Roomba, and so one of the biggest things he talked about was like pack in, pack out. He taught me on, and that was like with a scuba, when they came out with the scuba and all that, the simple little things killed them because of, like you're talking about, weight or accessories or things like that, bringing the cost up. But yeah, that is a difficult one. You can't really do a model like that. Keep it.
Yeah, and the old way used. I think it had some sort of counterweight system on like the first gen Maslow with some bungees and stuff, and it like went into the air. From some of the videos and stuff that I've watched about it. So I think the chain has just been kind of like one of those iterative open source things of the community. It's just like, well, then now we've got this link right here that the spring is way it's not the best, but it's the best tool for this circumstance. But then that's the cool thing about it. You can modify it and make it your own. So it's just to get everybody started.
What the hell, Payton?
That's right. That Drew's chicken there is in Payton's picture. It's just pretty awesome.
It's my daughter's name's actually Payton too.
That's funny.
Oh my God.
What's your rooster's name? What's your rooster's name?
That's Mr. Biggs. And then the two little bantas, the higher pitched ones. That's Mr. Biggs. And then the two higher pitched ones, they're Adam and Jamie.
Adam and Jamie.
Mr. Biggs, Adam and Jamie, right? I'm a big fan.
Jamie.
Yeah, when Drew walked up with the chicken, it was like, is that a duck? That's a chicken. That's awesome.
We're downtown, so it's funny. We're like downtown, right at the runway of the airport, right next to where the private jet hangars are. And so it's funny because I was like, oh, we're gonna make this. I used to be super corporate, so I'm like, I'm gonna turn this a little redneck now.
Yeah. And then we.
Yeah. Oh, redneck technician right here too. Yeah, same way.
Yeah. Oh, I'm cracking up over here.
I mean, I'm digging the picture. I wasn't going to tell Drew this, but there's a photo floating around of Drew with his emotional support rooster at Home Depot in the aisles. I'm making a T-shirt out of it, so I'll send y'all a photo.
Yeah. As a joke, I told my kids, they're like, they're never gonna let you into Home Depot with a rooster, and I was like, I was really nice. They were like, oh yeah,
emotional support rooster. I mean, I've heard of like ferrets and stuff, so roosters make sense, right? Yeah.
It totally happened. Hey,
so Ralph, you got a question?
I was going to make a comment on that last thing. It's like on the shipping, and if the counterweight thing becomes a future deal, maybe that's just one of those things where like you ship the normal parts and then you say, go to Home Depot and buy this heavy thing. And then it's like a lead weight or fishing wire.
The other option that I've been thinking about is like, okay, well, fill a container with water, right? Like that's
bag of sand or water.
So there are plenty of these options. One thing that we really need to do as this community is really grow out kind of and get a bit more organized around beta testing of hardware and things like that, because I'd be happy to trial these things all day long. If this works, that doesn't work, and then let's just run with the iterative improvements that we as a community are making, right, day in, day out.
Well, you've got your beta testers.
100%.
Yeah, and that's why Chris is doing the special beta testing session too, to kind of like separate it from this.
Can't wait for that.
Talk about development and then talk about training and support and stuff like that.
Same.
So yeah, Ralph, you got a question about Makerverse?
Yes, first of all, I do want to say that I'm super happy to be here. I was actually trying to troubleshoot. I didn't actually see the email, and I went back to the resources, and I could see that you guys had this Zoom session. So I'm super happy that you guys are doing this right now, and I'm so happy that it's actually Thursday morning at 10 a.m., so thank you. But I actually am having issues. I just finished my setup yesterday, and I can see that there's a couple of issues that I'm having with Makerverse. The first thing is that and again, you might have talked about this already. I got here a little late. Is the Makerverse file is corrupt. So whenever I download it from the Google Drive, it says it has corrupted workspace settings. And I can share my screen here. Oh no, it's disabled. It says the moment I download it from the Drive file on the resources, it gives me it says corrupted workspace settings. And then it says, do you want to restore defaults? And I don't know if this is leading for me to have other issues with Makerverse.
Well, luckily we won't have to do that longer, but Chris could probably
It is not causing you to. So what that issue is during the installation, it's supposed to create just a generic workspace file, and sometimes it doesn't. We see it mostly with Windows users, but whenever it pops up and says that there's a corrupted file, if you hit OK, it still processes through to that default. So I know.
So should I go to download workspace settings or just restore defaults? Does it make a difference?
Just restore defaults. That's fine.
And then, so that kind of leads me to my second question. So I set it up, and then so the first time I inverted my motors, of course, and I was like, oh man, what the fuck? Like, what's happening right now? And I was going from my back, I was going my left and right, but looking from the back of the board. And anyway, so I flipped them back, and it seems like it was moving properly, but I can't get it to stop. I set it to go down by 1 millimeter. So I'm using on the Makerverse on the right-hand side there where it has the, go down on your y-axis. And when I'm trying to go down on my y-axis, it just keeps going down.
Did you?
So I don't know how to do it by increment or like.
But so in Makerverse, when you first set up your machine, you have to declare the home value. So the first time when you set it all up, you set the chain so that the sled is in the center of your wasteboard. You'll make the connection. You will disable the alarm. You'll unlock, and then the very next thing you need to do is hit set home, and then that tells the machine that the sled is sitting at the position of 0, 0, because all of your jog math is based off of a known point of 0, 0. And so when you first set up your machine, it does not know where 0, 0 is or even what its current position is. So without hitting...
So I shouldn't be moving my Y and my X value to center my machine. I should be doing the machine by setting the slack on my chain. Correct. Or changing and then setting the home first, because otherwise it won't move properly if the 0, 0 is not set properly.
Yeah, but if you set home, just reset. If it's not perfectly centered, just reset home after you set home. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I from the videos I was watching, I had understood that I could just move the CNC machine, but that makes sense if the math is based off of the origin. So so I'll try that. We'll see how that goes. And are you guys still doing this next week? Are you guys doing this every Thursday?
Every Thursday. We will not be doing it whatever Thursday Thanksgiving lands on. It's I don't know. I think it's weird that Thanksgiving isn't the same day every year, or a week. But anyway, whatever Thanksgiving Thursday is, we will not be doing it that week. But other than that, every Thursday, this will be available.
Okay, so if I have issues, I'll definitely connect next week. And again, based on my personal experience, Drew, if you need help setting up like some extra resources for a manual, I'm happy to throw in a helping hand. And I'm thinking of maybe mounting some resources on a website too. So if there's videos or stuff that I can make, then let me know. I'm happy to help.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, just send me an email. That'd be great. And then yeah, we'll set it up. And maybe, you know, maybe I'll start doing a live stream that's all about guides. And we can start to, if Chris is gonna do a beta one, I'll do a tutorial one. So yeah, that'd be awesome. Because I wanna make the materials that's gonna make just easier for the community and help to build that and build it together with y'all. So absolutely. That's my
and I'm calling from a school right now, and I know that you guys were talking about, you know, what if you put a list of different parts that you can go buy. I do like the all-inclusive model that you guys have. I do like that. I know that it's supposed to work a certain way based on the materials I have. So I do like the package that you guys have set up. I just have to figure out what parts I needed and what parts I didn't. So, and I'm assuming from what you were saying is that documentation is being updated. So again, really appreciate the product. I think it's awesome. Super excited to use it.
Appreciate it.
I'm
great stuff. Hey,
sorry, I was writing in chat just that I want to get this forum thing rolling and get off Facebook, or at least partially off Facebook. So I'm putting my email in the chat. Email me if you want to be a part of this founding forum movement.
Dale will help you. He's really good at that. He set up the bunch of Rackspace thing.
We're in. You have our email.
Thanks, guys. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike.
Yeah. No, that was the greatest interruption ever. And I'll be so happy. Hey, I just wanted to put a word in for I think it's Dale, right?
Dale.
Had like it went by pretty quick there, but he had a freaking fantastic little suggestion. That's huge. Is GitHub, man. I lead a software development team as my day job, which I'm actually supposed to be doing right now, and I'm the least capable guy on my entire team, but our team is using GitHub for documentation, and that way, you know, you can get contributions, you can get different forks, you can but I think rather than the model of having Maker Made be entirely, you know, like providing the documentation as part of a product, get a community contributing to documentation and allow you to go in various directions, you know.
And as far as
do both, goes, you know, if you can.
We do use GitHub and Git pages for our firmware and the Makerverse application. What we're moving towards is it's hard to fully, we want to have a kind of control set of instructions that come from us only because they are in line with the product that we sell, and it mitigates some of that liability of us saying like, hey, here's all the things that you can do, blah blah blah. So like even from like the Lego aspect of it, it's, hey, you can put this together in any way that you want, but here's how you make it look like the picture on the box. But as far as community, we love the feedback of, hey, this doesn't make sense, or the verbiage on this was a little wonky, and being able to really refine ours. But we are looking to put together like a repository of what those community-based instructions are, and very similar to like the spring that came by means of the community into an actual product, because it was received so well, and it did work. So we definitely lean on the community, and let them help kind of steer things as improvements are found. And we are going to do that more with the instructions as we progress into the M2 space. We just don't have a set way to receive that, because with GitHub, it's like an issue tracker, or you have a bug, or you have a, feature request, but then everything is, tracked through commit logs, or you can tie it to a code push and then have the resolutions. But with instructions, it's a little bit different, because we're basically asking for feedback on a README file. So we're working through that and navigating it, but we look to have a very similar feedback loop on the instructions as we do the code. So definitely, I appreciate the feedback, and anything that you have, any recommendations, anything in the instructions that you saw that stood out, that could be changed, either from just the user experience side or that didn't make sense, definitely let us know. And we take all of that feedback into consideration when we make our edits.
Hey, Chris, if I could, and I certainly don't want to take away from the way you all have things set up, and I know it's kind of a, there's definitely always a need for controls. If we could have a chat later about, take a look through the way I mentioned earlier, OpenStack does their documentation. That is GitHub driven. They have a tool that they use on top of it that you, I don't remember if it's written in Markdown or how it was written, but it is similar to Markdown, and it is community-based commits. But then, of course, there are maintainers and approvers that decide. They kind of have a separate meeting, and they go through and decide, okay, this fits, this doesn't make sense. Hey, no, that's not cool, and then it gets committed upstream via whoever is maintaining it. So basically, it'd be like you'd have everybody helping you write it, but you decide what goes in, and it's your format and your thing, but you control it. I mean,
absolutely. So they kind of, I guess, to just use the developer, they have like a CAB meeting.
Yes.
And
I don't remember what the name of the tool was that they'd used to do the conversion, but it wasn't done in README. It was actually, it was code
okay.
based.
No, that would be awesome. Anything that we can do to streamline, because I mean, I think, we are about as open source gets. Like you have access to the code for Makerverse. The firmware is out there, 3D printer firmware. So, we definitely do not want anyone to feel like we're creating this walled garden that prevents people from doing whatever they want. We are just merely trying to provide a baseline experience with the product so that you at least have a starting point for whatever adventure you set out on.
I agree with you. I honestly completely agree with you, Chris. I like the way you're doing things in that sense, because it's not just that, but it's also like if you start doing it, if you start open source too much, you're going to lose quality control and everything else. And you'll have a good product right now. You have a really good base, and you'll start getting feature creep. You'll start getting, it'll kind of be a mess, I think. I agree. I like the way you're doing it. And since it's open source, but keeping control of the main experience.
Sweet. Do we have any other questions on just troubleshooting or anything? I know we got about 20 minutes left. I want to make sure if anybody has anything else they need help on, that we get that addressed before we have to close out. Cool.
I can go. I was trying to, I'd done too much talking, so I was trying to let somebody else go. But I got about 80%. I got about like 80% of an understanding of the things you guys talked about with homing and how to manually get there and when you need to and whatnot. I don't think I'm ever, going to quite get it from, just this discussion. It'd be nice if I could go back and listen to it again and then take some notes this time. But that said, can you suggest what are the 5 or 6 very key things that get you accuracy up between 2 points on your x-axis, between 2 points on your y-axis, and then as you go across your x-axis, and your sled either droops down or goes up. Even if the x-axis from point A to B is perfect, but you're starting to drift up on your y-axis as you go across the your wasteboard.
100%.
And then also on your y-axis.
Yes.
I suspect that your distance between motors and your distance from your horizontal to your top of your wasteboard are going, those two things are what are going to fix those other two things. And I've experimented, but God dang it, can you guys just tell us?
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's the maximum amount of impact is those values. The biggest thing that a lot, and we see this more stateside than we do international, and it's strictly because millimeters are a more accurate method of measuring than using inches. So anytime you get into like digital manufacturing and everything, you're going to see millimeters as kind of the standard unit of measure. And it's just because it goes smaller and it's easier to do. Now, when you get into like metal,
I'm all metric, by the way.
Get into like thousands. One of the biggest things that we'll see is when you're measuring your distance between motors, if it's 3129.75, that's what it is. That is the value that you should use. A lot of people will make the error, and they will, not really an error, it's assumptions go in, right? Where if you leave off that 0.75, you're stealing the ability of gaining that 0.75 of accuracy while the machine works. Now we can compensate for that with linear scaling when you do like your known values. But if you want the truest, purest form of accuracy that is repeatable across the entire board, it is having the most accurate measurement that you can physically get for your distance between motors and your motor offset. Now, with that, the other thing that we have seen that causes a little bit of introduced error is when you actually use a sheet of 3/4 inch MDF as your wasteboard, it's not 4 foot by 8. MDF is actually 1 inch longer and 1 inch wider. And so actually putting those realistic values in, because a lot of times we'll see people, they'll use MDF and then they'll start measuring from like the edge when they're doing cuts, and they go, oh, well, I'm off by, 1/4 inch. And it's like, well, you're not actually off by 1/4 inch. You didn't tell us that the board was actually, 1 inch longer and 1 inch wider than the assumption was. So a lot of it's unfortunate because the firmware is based off of a lot of assumptions, with one of those assumptions being that all of the numbers that you type in are accurate. And so we'll tell people the fastest way to eliminate any kind of calibration issues you see is just to do a quick remeasure. Check to see, like, if you have a half step in there or something, go ahead and add it in the calibration. The next thing is, if you start to see a climbing arc during your cut, before you go to the calibration and tweak anything, check the speed of your bit. A lot of these bits are going to turn clockwise. So if you're going in there, if you're using like a downcut bit, doing a pretty aggressive plunge, and you've got, a horizontal grain pattern on your sheet that's up there, it's going to want to ride the grain, especially if you're running a slower RPM of router speed. So always check that first. I think because it's a kit and because you're doing a lot of the manual calibration, your mind wants to believe you set something up wrong whenever you don't get the results that you want. But sometimes it can just be you know, the grain of the wood, or the bit needs to be spinning faster, or maybe I plunged a little too far into the material. There are a lot of variables at play when you're running one of these machines, and it's always good to have a little bit of confidence in the work that you have already done before you get to the, you know, oh, okay, now I'm trying to hone this in. Look at the things that you haven't changed yet. And the router speed is a big one. We have a lot of people that say, oh, I got a little bit of bow in there, or I have a little bit of dip. And that can be caused by your motor offset value being off by just a little bit. And if you find out that that's bang on, I would go straight to router speed. Because traditional feeds and speeds for a gantry-based CNC machine are not going to translate directly to the Maslow, because we have that introduced friction where we are riding on the surface of the cut material. So like a lot of your feeds and speeds for a gantry-based CNC machine, you're going to be hanging around between 8 to 13,000 RPMs for a lot of your cuts, whereas you're going to see a little bit faster rotation on the Maslow machine because of how we're riding on the surface. And if you get a little bit of deflection because of rough grain or a super dense material, you're going to need that extra horsepower in bit RPM to maintain a straight line.
Yeah, I see Drew writing notes. That kind of goes back to Mike's earlier point about the disparaging, you know, the deltas of all the different things that are involved. You know, you have your baseline, and then you have your gotchas, you know, simple things like nominal versus actual size wood, and 1 inch on a board. And so what I did on the MDF is I actually measured from the center of mine when I had on the other one, and then I marked outward. I didn't rely on the edges because I knew MDF was bigger. But again, if you're not, as Chris said, if you don't know, maybe that's like, you know, a rider. It's a little, you know, if and then section in the manual. Like, when you get to this point, if you are using this is the information you need, and then kind of refer back type of deal.
It's really hard too, because it's almost that balance of like throwing too much information at a beginner, where they're like, I don't know what that means. So it's definitely a delicate balance. And that's what I tried to do with those little notes. So I'm trying
Drew's
to make,
notes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to make those the kind of call outs for like more advanced stuff, like this is the thing, and like this is why, or this is the tip, or something like that. So that's kind of the goal behind those. So I want to kind of try to make those notes more technical version, maybe. I mean, is that format? Do you like that format of kind of like as you're going through it?
It's like a side note, man. It's like a, you know, it's a what do you call it? Not a rider, but a
asterisk.
Yeah, it's like Clippy, man, from old school Microsoft Word.
Hey, you're making a cut. Yeah.
I see you're making a cut. Oh man, we're gonna have Drew head cutouts. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be meeting.
One thing too, I did want to touch on real fast about the potential if you are seeing bowed or curved lines. If you check that measurement and you're bang on that measurement, and you check your speeds and everything is good there, a 4-foot level is your best friend when it comes to a lot of this stuff, because a lot of time, you know, a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet, if you get one from a lumber yard and it is perfectly flat, I will buy it from you. And so a lot of times if you see a little bit of bow, because you have to think the chains are only going to give you enough chain slack to draw that straight line. So if there's an introduced bow into the wasteboard, you're going to go around it. You're going to travel at wherever that chain will allow you to go. Yeah. So usually I would say if your line bows up, I would check bit speed and I would check flatness of your waste material. If your bow goes down, I would check your measurement of your distance, your motor offset.
So motor offset is going to affect that's going to be a bow as you move left to right.
Correct.
Now what's going to cause a similar effect as you go bottom to top?
That, in my opinion, is going to most likely be because of router speed. Because you're running with gravity on the straight up and straight down. So if you can jog straight up and straight down without seeing a bow, but you see it in the cuts, then I would say you are either plunging too deep on your depth per pass, or your router RPMs are too low for the material that you're cutting. And so we have seen there have been some users that will do like a quick test on an MDF surface where you can put like a ballpoint pin in the router and then set your Z height to where it's like right at that perfect zero where it's touching. And then you just kind of jog it around to see if you're getting straight lines. And that's just kind of a way that people have come up with, that you're not cutting you don't have to cut anything to do that, and you don't even have to turn the router on. So it's just a quick and easy way to check things. And obviously a straight line drawn with a pin, you can get that level back out and run it on there and see if it's running straight or not. I like your frame.
Awesome.
By the way.
Yeah, just one last quick thing. I just wanted to point out all of my measurements and calibration and everything that I'm talking about is been done without the router running. So I'm first trying to get that thing perfectly dialed, and I have got a wasteboard that is perfect to, I don't know, a couple thousandths of a grid of 3 millimeter holes on a 96 millimeter grid. And everything I'm doing metric. So my wasteboard is got a hole in the very dead center. And what I've got in my configuration is actual metric measurement of this piece of MDF, which, like you said, might be nominally 4x8, but is absolutely not 4x8. It's closer to an inch. I think it is in the long dimension. I think that'd be a good thing for Drew for your manual. You're listing nominal lumber sizes, and people are having to infer that some of these measurements might be important. And so, understand that Drew's talking nominal numbers. So make sure you do all your measurements on actual numbers. But it's an assumption. Am I right or wrong? I'm not really sure. And I'm, building this whole thing and hoping I got it right. So,
yeah. I mean, just you did the same thing that Dale said he did, is like measure from the center and then out. So, definitely that's a great point. To like make sure that we're calling that out, because I run into that too as an amateur woodworker. It's like, this 2x4 is not.
I'm gonna put a sign up in here, because every time they switch our damn machines over to Imperial, I want to slap somebody. Like, I'm gonna start. I have a new rule. I'm gonna start zapping. I'm gonna get a cattle prod. You switch over to Imperial, I'm gonna hit you with a cattle prod. It drives me. Yeah, he's definitely. We need to stick with metric. It's way better.
Drew, everybody.
Awesome. So in the closing minutes of today's session, do we have any final questions or follow-ups to anything that we've covered previously?
Has Joel asked any questions? Oh, nice, Mike. I need to get some of those.
Joel might be Joel the tech support king. I think that's the Joel.
Is that your Joel?
I think that's Joel, tech support king.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone has sent an email to info@MakerMade or support@MakerMade or had issues with tracking a shipment or warranty replacements or anything else like that,
Joel.
there's a 99% chance that you interacted with Joel and he took care of you. So like as far as like post-purchase support, shipping, all of that stuff, like Joel is the backbone of all of that. So mad props to him for everything that he does.
Here I am. Hello, everybody.
Hey, it's Joel.
Well, props to all of y'all. Y'all are
probably doing tech support right now during this session. He's like typing out emails.
Yep.
Ticket. Yeah, you all have been great, every one of you.
We're so impressed by far.
Really appreciate that, guys. It means a lot to hear it come from y'all. Seriously.
You guys want me to take the chicken down? Is it?
No, leave it.
No, I love the chicken.
No, that's gonna be now on. That's the
a shirt.
Mr. Biggs, keep Mr. Biggs in his prominent spot.
I'll get busy on that shirt here real soon.
Yeah. I'd like to
shirt. We'll send you a Maker Made shirt.
Yeah, we would love Maker Made shirts. We will wear them all the time.
Yeah, we will.
I want you to cut it out into like a design that you like.
Okay. I definitely don't forget to send me the logo because I'm gonna cut. We have the big vinyl cutter that I actually want to use. And I bought a big 52-inch vinyl cutter that like sits around, so it'd be badass. I want to make it big for the wall. So
yeah.
Mike, it looks so pretty wherever you are. I'm jealous.
Oh, awesome. This is Placerville, California, Northern California, about an hour west of Lake Tahoe.
Wow, cool.
Dang.
Yeah, it's been cold and rainy here in Arkansas for like 10 years. So
it's about in the 50s in Texas for some reason.
We're gonna be in the 80s again.
We had a cold front come in for 3 days, and then tomorrow it's going to be in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Texas.
Ralph, are you in Canada?
Ralph?
Thought you might have had a Canadian accent, maybe. Or maybe northern accent. I have a lot of family from Iowa and Minnesota too. So
Raph, don't be offended. Come back.
Don't go.
Alfredo, where are you?
I'm actually in San Antonio. Now I remember where you're at because you had that wine guild meeting not that long ago, and I was at that. My wife is part of the San Antonio Winemakers Guild, so I've been to your shop, and I remember you having the Maslow, and now, this COVID crap has been just smack across my face, busy, and sometimes my mind is in so many different places at any given time that I was just like, I know that guy, and I've been struggling, and I actually just texted my wife, and I was like, you remember the guy from the guild? He had a really cool shop.
That's so funny. That's so awesome. That makes me.
Yeah, I'm actually. So yeah, we're in the same city.
Sweet. We need to do a Maker Made meetup.
Yeah, when COVID's over, we'll do or maybe we just sit out in the field 6 feet away from each other.
Yeah, just kind of wave like hi, hi. Well, and I'm a teacher. Like I said, I'm actually pseudo teaching a class right now. But at the same time, it's like. I teach at Roosevelt High School. It's a really big. So for those of you
next to Rackspace.
Yeah, well, for those of you not familiar with Texas has enormous high schools. I have 3,000 students at my school.
Wow.
And so to try to manage something like that in COVID,
So to blow your mind a little bit more, your national night outs that you have every year, except for this one, when you have those outdoor events and you have a DJ.
Is that you? I've actually only been to it once. I've only been teaching here for 3 years. I came from North Austin, I've been to it once because we have those magnet schools here at Roosevelt that are engineering and computer science based. So I had a chance to, but I have my own little ones that always they're in middle school and they always seem to be pulling me away.
Nice. Cool. Crazy, tiny world.
I've got 5 kids, so I feel good. And right now I've got one in a preschool, elementary, middle, high school, and college.
Oh man.
So like, doing the remote learning right now.
He's a Marine, so he was busy.
Oh yeah, I'll bet he was.
Cool.
No, I got 2 middle schoolers and
This is a Marine? Don't.
You say Chris is a Marine?
Payton just said Chris is a Marine.
Well, no, I said he has 5 kids. I know he's a veteran.
No, I was in the Army.
Yeah.
I scored a little higher on my ASVAB.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's funny. I actually scored a 98. My ex-wife beat me though. She got 99.
I don't even remember, honestly. I took it at MEPS and they were like, here's the book of jobs that you can have. What do you want?
It was funny. I actually didn't think I didn't. The only reason I even remember that is because my ex-wife was like, we were having. She had a PhD, and I hadn't even finished my undergrad. So she was like, she was making fun of me. She's like, I'm gonna totally kick your ass, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna. And she ended up being at one point. But
hey, look, there's Adam and Jamie.
Right. Ralph's a middle school teacher too. That's awesome. A bunch of
really?
Yeah.
No, I like. Hey, so one quick question. I'd really like your small Maslow'll you did in there. The M2 that you did.
Tiny one?
Yeah. Did you do? That's a 48 or 40 by 48 or 36 by 36.
48 by 48. Yeah. 48 by 48.
I actually have my machine configured. I can set it larger to do the 4 foot by 8 foot, but I configured it to do half sheets instead, so it's easier for me to manage in a small shop.
Myself into like a math craziness. The big thing is you have to have at least between the wasteboard and the chain. You need to have that distance there, and then you got to kind of play with the values a little bit. And we're kind of been testing it. We've been testing some other ones too for like some smaller frames to be able to do that, just to be able to have it take up a smaller amount of space. So you don't, if you don't have the space to have like a 4x8 area, then you can have like a smaller one, be able to cut it. Like this is a spare room in my house that I've like converted into a studio.
Well, it'd be perfect for lasers. When you're talking about the laser attachment, that's perfect for that. And so, because I've been trying to build some little lasers that we could do for things like that. So I'm excited. Like if y'all have that one, that's perfect. Then it's see like I'll play with that laser and see. Then I don't have to build mine. I can use the kits.
We've even tested ones that are smaller than this too. But during that beta thing, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, we're in. Class dismissed.
Class, sorry.
I guess we're done anyway, right?
Well, yeah, this is great, guys. We'll be on every Thursday. That's exciting, and I do think we should do a Maker Made meetup group too. One of my business thoughts is, so we've been looking at doing some of our business models here, and one thing I really liked about what you're doing is, I think one thing we could shift focus on, since we do a lot of prototyping, but prototyping is kind of hard because sometimes people don't understand the true cost of prototyping. But to do prototyping, we have to have all these machines, and so we do a lot of different stuff. We do a lot of small jobs too. Having all these machines allows us to teach people like workforce creation. Right now, workforce creation is a huge thing. So we're trying to get some grants to do workforce creation. And one thing we really want to do because you can't teach cybersecurity in 2 weeks. They're one of these 2-week programs. You can't teach that, but you can't teach them how to use some shop equipment, things like that. And so what I want to start doing is like we all start use accessories for Maker Made. Like we could spin up producing accessories for y'all and stuff like that. And that way it's doing workforce training. So we're using the workforce to train them. It keeps our costs. We're not have to compete with like China and everything else. And we could do it. I think there's some cool things we could do in that. And I love what y'all are. I think there's a lot of options in there. So I kind of want to talk more about that, but I think that'd be really cool because we could do some really cool stuff and it'd be newsworthy and things like that. Help get some media attention stuff for y'all.
Well, we'll be in touch for sure.
Yep. I'll send you an outline of the whiteboard of what we have written up. So, and if you Google us, you'll see we're good at getting. We always joke that we can switch to being a PR company if everything else fails. So,
yeah. Well, cool guys. Well, does anybody else have any more questions?
We found out that Raph is from Edmonton, Canada, and it.
Hey, good call.
Yeah.
Now we know.
Snow just melted yesterday, he said. So I'm sure there's going to be much more of that.
I'm sure there will.
Yes, actually, yeah. I was just working on it, so it's all fixed up now. So thanks for your help. I've been able to actually move the motors properly, so hopefully got some cuts going today. We'll see. I'll film it and I'll let you guys know how it went next week.
Please do.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, see y'all next week. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Good to meet you.
Bye.